Okay, hands up. Who loves TED? And I'm not talking about the film with Mark Wahlberg. Excellent. Then you're in for a treat. Okay, who doesn't know what TED is? Ha! You're in for a treat as well. Let's go.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. I am your host, Timbo Reid. But you, so much more importantly, are a motivated small business owner ready to crank out some great marketing. And that's what we are here to do for you around here. So well done for tuning in. Big show today, team, brought to you by the very good folk at Net Registry and 99 Designs. Now, here's what we are going to cover. As I said at the start, TED. I have got an interview today, not with TED. That's not a person. I'll tell you what TED stands for later, but John Yeo is the curator of TEDx Melbourne, and a huge success story that is, and he takes us behind the scenes of the TED success and the TEDx success. Now, I've got a reminder about a very simple yet effective marketing communications principle. I have got a fantastic listener success story, a listener who applied an idea from a recent show and has had a really big win. I'll share that with you. And also another listener and forum member who has nailed their book cover, and I'm going to explain how they did that. I'm going to wrap up John's interview, the TEDx Fellows interview, with a top 5, not a top 3. There are so many learnings in there. And I've got a really good, well, I reckon they're all good, but a motivating marketing quote of the week. My favourite so far. So, lot to cover. Let's get stuck right in.
Small Business Big Marketing with Tim Reid. smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
So I had a forum member share this week a wonderful outcome and a really good learning for us all. It's from SJ. SJ calls herself the safety nerd. I love that little that moniker. She says inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum, which you can, by the way, become a member of, go to crankmymarketing.com. I digress. Sarah says, hi all. She's talking to the forum members. After talking with Tim about my brand, I changed my tack and put more of my personality into my work, and it's worked. I've signed up ongoing work with 3 big, well-known organisations, mainly working from the office. Now, Sarah, up until now, has had to travel a lot, but she has figured out a way of doing stuff not remotely, but from her office, which is a great outcome already. For me, long-term, ongoing work with minimal travel is unusual, so big wins. I believe it was my change in tact with my branding, the way I presented myself without hiding my personality and recommendations, that worked. So she goes on to talk a little bit more about it. But here's the learning, team. And I talked today to John Yeo from TEDx about this as well. The importance of honouring who you are in the marketing of your business. Now, I know that I'm speaking to a lot of business owners on this show. I know thousands of you tune in from all around the world. And I implore you, I encourage you to identify. You don't even need to identify it. Get clear on your personality and embed it into your marketing. That is a point of difference. And that's what SJ has done, and it's worked. Don't hide behind who you are when marketing your business. You know, so many big businesses, you know, it's harder for them to establish a personality because there are so many more employees. But with your business, it's you, number of employees. Be yourself. It's funny, you know, when I see business owners maybe take the stage at a networking event or even reading copy on their websites, often you can fall into what I call marketing speak. Don't. Be yourself. Now, that is a great win, and thank you, SJ, for sharing that. Here's another win, and I love this. This is a little bit more visual, but I want to share it with you anyway. Past guest and forum member and long-time listener of the show, Lindsay Spencer Matthews. In fact, Lindsay's a psychologist who I interviewed on episode 202, recently ran a design competition on 99 designs for his new book cover. Now, he has shared, so the way 99 Designs works, just in case you don't know, is that you run a design competition for anything you want designed. You post it there, you nominate an amount of prize money. Lindsay, for book covers, it's from $299. How cheap is that? You then have designers from all over the world responding to your brief, right? And then after 7 days, you shortlist it, you choose your winning design, and you award the prize money to the winning designer, who then sends you the high-res files. Now, Lindsay ran this design competition, and he shared the shortlist of the 8 book covers. He got about 160 or so submissions. He shortlisted the designs down to 8, and they are so highly professional. Like, I'm looking at them now. Obviously, I can't show them to you, but it is like, these are covers that you would expect to see in a bookshop, in an airport bookshop. You know, when you look at the top 20 best-selling books in an airport bookshop, the covers are also compelling. It's like looking at lollies. And Lindsay's are too. They're fantastic. The book's called Why Clever People Do Dumb Things. One is a wonderful illustration of a bloke in a suit sitting on a tree branch and soaring off the tree branch close to the trunk. That's dumb. Another one is a wonderful shot of a guy in a suit in a tiny little red car racing down a hill. That's dumb. But my point is, the designs are beautiful and a great way of being able to get people's opinions by shortlisting and sharing the designs. It could be on your Facebook. In this case, for Lindsay, it's been inside the Small Business Big Marketing Forum. You can do this too by heading over to 99 Designs. You can run design competitions for absolutely anything that you want designed. And it's got a 100% money back guarantee if you don't get the design you love. But what you are going to get is designers from all around the world responding to your design brief. So head over to 99designs.com/SBBM and you'll get a free $99 Power Pack upgrade, which means you'll get about 185% more designers responding to your brief. You got to love that. My big point here, guys, is that there is marketing success everywhere. And I love sharing it, because sharing those little wins and big wins is really important. And I suggest, if you want to kind of share it amongst friends, join the Small Business Big Marketing Forum over at crankmymarketing.com. Hey, now listen to this feedback I got from listener Leanne Shorter. Boy, oh boy, is there a marketing idea here for every single one of us. Leanne has a business called resistitbands.com. They're those kind of elasticy bands that you see in gyms that you pull and they provide resistance and you build your muscles and get more flexible, you know, that type of thing. Leanne says, hey, Timbo, just wanted to share a little success I have had this week after getting an idea from a recent podcast, episode 193, with quantum physicist, no less, Elaine Saunders, who was a real disruptor in her industry. She was selling hearing aids online. Leanne says, I've been listening for a few months now and have tried to use a lot of your tricks and tips for my new business at Resist It Bands. We have just gone live with the website, so not everything is perfect, but at least it's out there. Exactly, Leanne, at least it's out there. Get it out there and then start to improve. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Leanne goes on to say, in that podcast, you asked the lady how she got traction. I did. And she said that an article in a small local newspaper got noticed. So the next day, I sent an article about my business to the local paper and they printed it with a few changes. And the next thing I know, it is in over 14 internet newspaper sites. Fantastic, Leanne. So it's got printed in the real local newspaper and then 14 online newspapers have picked it up. That's how things work. The media is always looking for content. As a result of this article, the local paper has asked me to write a fortnightly fitness column for them. That is fantastic, Leanne. Thanks for all your great ideas. My pleasure. I'm going to keep implementing as many of them as I can. Therein lies the magic. Say it again. Action creates reaction. That was a motivational marketing quote from a few weeks ago. Never stop saying that. Thanks again, Timbo, for all your great podcasts, Leanne. Hey, Leanne, my pleasure, and thank you for sharing this. Hey, team, here are 3 things you could do as a result of what Leanne's done. Number 1, the media's got to fill centimetres and seconds every day. I'm talking press, print, TV, radio. They've got to fill the space, all right? So get out there and help them fill that space. How? Point 2, find a newsworthy angle to your business and send it to journos, all right? Now, for example, Leanne's newsworthy angle could have been one about the growth of her small business. It could be the health and wellness benefits of her resisted bands. It could have been something niche like how low impact the resisted bands are, so they're great for the elderly. So there's all sorts of different angles you can find. It might be some research that you do and you send the findings to the journalist. Whatever it is, find an angle that's newsworthy and send it to the journalist. Point 3, don't just think offline. Think online. In fact, think online even more than offline, I reckon. Bit biased there. But us podcasters, bloggers, vloggers, we all need content. We're all looking for things to share. I'm looking for marketing gold to drip off the small business big marketing ceiling. So think about getting your message out there. 99 Designs, as a sponsor of this show, have identified us podcasters as being a group of people who have a listener base that listens to us. So they're smart. You can do the same, okay? Don't necessarily need to go out and seek sponsorship, but get your news articles into the hands of people who can share it with others who may want to buy from you. Hey, it's that simple. Leanne did it, and now she's writing a weekly column for a newspaper. Wow. Great story, Leanne. Thanks for sharing. Hey, team, if you have a success in your marketing as a result of this show, send it to me, tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Righto, we're not that far away from our interview with TEDx curator John Yo, but let me first tell you how you can get your online marketing sorted. Head over to netregistry.com.au. That's how. If you have got any kind of resistance around registering a domain name, getting a website designed, getting your existing website search engine optimized, maybe you want to get it found on Google with a bit of pay-per-click advertising. All these things may seem alien to you. That's cool. Do what you do best and let NetRegistry get your online footprint sorted. That's what they do. So I would encourage you to take a look at netregistry.com.au. Many motivated small business owners do. And tell them Timbo sent you. I reckon you are going to love this fireside chat I had with TEDx Melbourne curator since 2009, John Yo. Now, I first met John about 2 years ago. He picked me up from a train station, actually, and I went to speak at his local Chamber of Commerce. That's the very first time I met him. Didn't see him again until I recently went to TEDx in Melbourne and met John again. And I didn't kind of draw the fact that I'd met him before. Someone introduced me to him and say, "Oh, yeah, here, meet John. He's the boss here." And I didn't pick up the fact that that was the John that... I'm hopeless at that type of stuff. Usually pretty good with faces, hopeless with names. Usually pretty good with faces, but sorry, John, didn't recognise you that time when I met you at TEDx recently. Anyway, now John's position at TEDx is voluntary, believe it or not, as the curator. He's been doing it since 2009. When he's not doing TEDx stuff, he actually has a business focused on productivity and engagement in the workplace. Very, very passionate business guy is John. And we cover a lot of ground here. We talk about what TED is, in case you don't know, in case you have been living under a rock. Hey? If you don't know what TED is, go to TED.com and check it out. Or, specifically to John, Google TEDx Melbourne and check that out. We explain exactly what TED is early on. and how it came to be so successful. We have a really good chat about branding, about getting bums on seats, about the power of public speaking as a marketing channel, and so much more. And I started off by asking John what his favourite TED Talk was and why.
Oh, that's a great question. Look, it's quite tricky, that one. It's kind of like asking what your favourite child is. But one that always stands out is always the ones that really are tight and pithy. And Derek Sivers' video called Weird But Different is definitely one of those. It's about 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
One of the reasons I like it is a lot of people have great ideas, but what Derek's talking about in that particular video is actually what are the assumptions we make about the world we live in. And why I like that one is all great ideas have come from someone thinking about the current situation in a slightly different way. Mm-hmm. And the talk talks pretty much to that.
Is that a TED Talk or a TEDx Talk?
No, it's a TED Talk.
And, let's talk about what is TED, because interestingly enough, before I hit the record button, we're talking about, is there a saturation out there in the marketplace? Is TED still got growth left in it? Mm-hmm. I reckon there's a whole lot of listeners out there who don't know what TED is. And in fact, I thought all TED Talks were 18 minutes, and you just told me your favourite's 2.5 minutes. So, What is TED and what's the premise?
Sure. Look, TED began as a conference about just over 30 years ago, based around the premise of ideas worth spreading. It began mostly as not a private event, but just a regular conference like any other conference. But what differentiated it in 2005 is they decided to take all the recordings that they had from those events and put them on a website. Huh. That was phenomenally successful to the point where this year I think there's about 1 billion views of TED videos, and there's 480 million unique people watching TED Talks on any given moment. So that's TED as a brand. Just to answer your question around TEDx Melbourne as well, just so I should clarify that. TEDx, where the X stands for an independently organised event. So we're all volunteers, including myself. And we get to curate and put together TED-like events in our local town. So my job as a curator is to find all the speakers and explore these ideas worth spreading in a Melbourne context or an Australian context.
Cool. So just before we leave TED then and go into TEDx Melbourne or TEDx, does TED stand for Technology, Education, Design?
Entertainment and Design.
Technology, Entertainment, Design.
Yes, yeah, technology. So the guy that noticed it was realising that there was a fusion between those three areas.
Yep.
And essentially gathered some friends to talk about it.
And it was originally amazing that he filmed all these talks prior to even thinking about putting them online as a website. And were the first ones Cupertino or Oxford?
So began way back when in actually Monterey in California. So yeah, he did have a lot of vision. In fact,
a lot of vision.
Yeah, in terms of recording them, absolutely.
Who was he?
His name was Richard Saul Werman. And then he sold it to a guy called Chris Anderson in 2001.
Why do I know who's Chris Anderson?
Chris Anderson's the current curator and owner of the TED.
Maybe I just know him because he's that. It seems like I know him from elsewhere.
Yeah, there's another Chris Anderson that does Wired magazine or something like that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
the editor.
Yeah.
Aha. So TEDx just grew, and it went through some just crazy growth. And listeners, just go to TED.com, and you're just going to be blown away as a resource, as an alternative to TV, as a way of honing your speaking skills. Because even though your favourite talk, John, is a 2.5 minute talk, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the premise of a pure TED talk 18 minutes?
So they're known for their 18-minute talks, but talks go up to 18 minutes. So what I've noticed, particularly in the last 12 months, is actually the videos that have actually got more popularity are around the 9-minute mark.
Yeah, well, our attention span is like that of a gnat.
It's definitely shrinking.
Sure is. So there is not a you are not required to deliver an 18-minute talk if you're invited to onto the TED stage.
No. Look, the premise I like to have there is, what do you want to say, and how long do you think it'll take to say it? If it takes 18 minutes, it takes 18 minutes. If it takes 9, let's do up 9. But
Totally.
Wouldn't you rather a talk that had amazing impact that was 9 minutes than one that was 18?
Like the life lesson there, John. I reckon half the business books that are written could be written on an A4 piece of paper. And I'm not underplaying the power of the ideas. I use Malcolm Gladwell's Blink as an example of this, where love the book, love the idea that when you see something for the first time or meet someone for the first time, you know whether it's the real thing or not. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the idea.
Yeah,
didn't need 400 pages.
No. In fact, I had the pleasure of actually meeting Jack Canfield, and I asked him, it actually came up in conversation. He actually believes that the reason why his Chicken Soup series was so successful is that none of the stories are longer than 4 pages.
So true. And the interesting thing about that is that it's really hard to be simple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's easy to complicate things. So getting back to TED,
sure.
So the premise, okay, so it's not 18 minutes, it's up to 18 minutes. Another premise, I guess, is that it has to be one idea worth spreading as the basis of your talk, correct?
Yeah. In particular, the worth spreading bit. A lot of people forget. I mean, it's easy to come up with an idea, not to disparage ideas, but there's a load of ideas out there.
No shortage of them.
But, what are the ones that are worth spreading? What's going to cause someone to, and again, when I'm speaking to my speakers, I ask them, at the end of your talk, someone ideally leans forward in their chair, looks at the person next to them, whether they know them or not, and says, that guy on stage, they're either brilliant or they've got rocks in their head. Like, what is that? If they're not going to talk about it, it's not going to be viral in nature. Then it's not going to spread.
So true. The one that my favourite, it's probably not my favourite. It's really hard to pick a favourite TED Talk because there are so many. But the one that always comes to mind is the bloke who invented the shark-proof wetsuit.
Ah, yes. Good old TEDx Perth.
TEDx Perth.
Yeah.
Not even a TED Talk.
Absolutely.
Like that, I'm listening to that, I'm going, because I've always laughed, kind of, at the fact that wetsuits are generally black and make you look like a seal, which is sharks' favourite lollies. So this guy's invented a suit that reflects water, that is not, one of them isn't, it's hard to see in water. It's like what was Brian Singer thinking at Rip Curl when he did invent the seal costume?
He probably, I'm guessing, look, way back when, they probably just ordered big sheets of rubber and just sewed them together, sorry.
Well, he did. In fact, I've interviewed him on this show, and great story. Be a great TEDx. Oh, well, no, would it be no, it wouldn't be a great TEDx story because it's a story of a business. But he bought a World War II sewing machine and set up in a little house in Torquay and started making wetsuits for his mates down at Bells Beach because it was just too cold, So, and it's how all great businesses start, isn't it? Just like meeting a need.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that was, my favourite and very, very shareable, like it's like, again, the founder of TED, it was just like ahead of his time because now, when I talk about marketing and I hear others talk about marketing, we talk about, is that shareable? If we're creating content, we talk a lot about content on this show and inside my forum, it's like, is that going to be shareable? Will people want to pass that on to one person or lots of people?
Yeah,
exactly. And certainly TED Talks get you to do that. So TEDx, John, did you buy the license and bring it to Melbourne? You're a volunteer curator. How's all that work?
Sure. So, first of all, there is no license fee, but what actually happens is the moment you run your event, the license expires, and based on a public survey that goes out from TED, the renewal is based on the feedback. So if they don't like the feedback, you don't get your license renewed.
Interesting.
That's the first part of it. Having said that, I've run 12 events now, so I think I'm doing okay.
You're doing okay.
I think I'm doing okay.
Were you one of the first TEDx in Australia, in the world?
I think I'm probably one of the more experienced ones globally, simply because of the number of events I've run. And I've been doing this for about 5 years now.
It's such an amazing brand, and obviously it attracted someone like you to it, who's an astute business person. What do you love about the TEDx brand and the way TED, because it's really TED that you bought into, goes about marketing itself?
TED as a brand attracts clever people, change makers, thought leaders, etc. And first of all, I feel that's my tribe. So that's pretty easy one to sort of be part of, I think. The other part of it, though, is really strong on the attitude. I've never been to a TED or a TEDx event where you could pretty much say your wildest, most craziest dream, and someone would say, no, that's not possible. In fact, everyone has said, I love that idea, or have you also thought about this, or you should meet this person. It's very positive oriented, and it's somewhat addictive. It's very easy, to be in a space where everyone thinks you're cool.
Well, and by way of example of that, I was at the recent TEDx event in Melbourne that you put on, and well done, by the way, full room and amazing speakers. And, I go to the footy a lot, and you are expected to barrack at the footy. When someone takes a mark, you cheer, particularly if it's there on your side. But there were people cheering for thoughts and opinions shared during people's talks at the TEDx event. You don't see that all the time.
No, absolutely. Look, the goal for our event is to change the way people think and feel about the world they live in. And, we're not doing our job unless people are inspired or excited by the content that we put on stage, but also by the people that choose to be in the space. And how do we best serve them? By creating opportunities for them to connect.
So you're into community building. I love the idea of community building. How do you do that? Like, how do you get? Let's start with speakers. I imagine you'd get a lot of speakers putting their hand up saying, "I want to be on the TEDx stage."
Yeah. So we had, as you were there, we had about, I think it was 14 items up on stage. About 300 applications to get there. So competition's pretty high. And
how often does it run? Once a year?
Well, we historically run a few a year, but we're not going to do that anymore because as our events have got bigger, we're almost 900 people now. It's actually got technically very difficult for our volunteers to manage.
Yeah. So
we're scaling back the events in terms of large scale, but we're actually doing something a bit clever next year, which I'll talk about.
Yeah, hold that thought. So let's get back to I'd love to know. So you got 300 speakers. You've got to get it down to 14. And they have got to be people who are going to get us all thinking, inspired, challenged. How do you do that?
So, again, come back to the premise. Ideas worth spreading. Focus on the worth spreading bit. What is it that's going to cause someone to sit up and go, whoa? It can't be just something clever or tricky. You might remember the Andrew Gazon talk where he talked about the criminal code. Do you remember him talking about? And what was interesting about that particular talk, I think, was that he originally came to me. He said, "Oh, look, I tried to hand myself into the police, but they told me to go away," which is kind of funny in itself. But long story short, rather than him talking about himself handing himself in, we got him to explore what the criminal code was, and it was essentially do what you say you're going to do. If your brother is in trouble, you've got to back him up. Don't exploit women. Don't exploit children. Don't take advantage of the poor. And so I said to Andrew, what if we positioned it this way? Imagine a world where people did what they said they were going to do. If you ever got in trouble, you knew someone always had your back. And we lived in a world that didn't exploit women, children, and the poor. What sort of world could we live in? And, in which case, who's the criminal? What gives us the right to point fingers at someone when they feel like they're doing something that serves a higher purpose? They unfortunately choose to do it in a way that's maybe not so positive as an outcome, but, you can't deny that the values underneath are still there. They're just
Okay, so
interpreted differently.
absolutely. So you're looking, and again, some of the speakers, listeners who were there at the most recent TEDx Melbourne, we had a lady who was one of 28 people in Australia destined to fly to Mars in I think it was 2025, one-way trip. That was interesting, hearing about someone who can't wait to hop on a plane and head out of the universe and never come back. There was a guy who figured out, I can't remember the term he used, but figured out he could 1,500 different language indicators to figure out whether you were lying or not, or whether that was fascinating. Just the list went on and on. So you were looking for people who not only had great ideas but were infinitely shareable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these people are bold in so many ways, in their thinking, in their attitude, even being willing to give away what some people might see as their core IP.
Oh, yeah. People get worried about that.
And, sharing because they genuinely love the idea that this could really fundamentally change the world they live in. And it's that attitude which will always help, rather than I've got something I could promote or I could position this that's got...
Okay, so how do you, because of those 300, John, I am guessing there is a large proportion who just want to be able to put TEDx on the speaker's bio.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So therefore, they're coming at it from the wrong place. Have any ever got through your filter, and how do you weed them out?
So none have got through my filter.
Oh, you're good.
I have a fairly rigorous process. Of those 300 people, probably 19 out of 20 wouldn't warrant either an idea worth spreading or seen as self-promoting. So they'll be told.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to apologise. There's a handful I haven't got back to, but I'll explain.
Do it
why.
now. Just do it broadly.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for your application.
Unfortunately,
at this point, didn't fit within either our theme or didn't fit in with the context that we were trying to do.
Yeah, trying to sell too hard. One of you was.
Year. Yeah. Look, yeah. I never say no to people. I just say, look, let's keep exploring, because the moment you limit yourself is the moment you start. That's when everything goes to pot.
Mm-hmm.
So those people, even the 1 in 20 that do get through, 30% don't make it through the speech development program that I've created.
Oh, what's that?
So I've got it's not a little process anymore. It takes about 8 to 25 hours. And it's a speech development program that allows people to deliver messages with impact. Huh. And so I work with speakers all the time around this, not just in the TED context, to help people talk about what they love, but also deliver in a contextually relevant way and in an engaging way that makes sure that people are on the edge of their seat.
So that's kind of like, that's a speaker's training program.
Yeah, kind of a speaker's training program.
I've just recently read How to Deliver a TED Talk. Kind of did my head in a bit. It's quite complicated, that book.
There's three books out there, and they're all quite clever in technique, but maybe I'm sounding a bit self-promotional here, but I like to think mine's better. Yeah,
if you don't, who will? I know, past guest, Zara Swindles Gross, past guest of this show. She did a TEDx talk, 80 hours practice for 18 minutes. How good was her talk too, by the way?
Look, it's not unusual for speakers to do that. I can guarantee a standing ovation on my stage with the formula I have. I think it's pretty rigorous, and stuff that Zara does in terms of the hours committed is definitely a significant part of that.
Yeah, and she talked about Zara being my speaking coach, and she's brutal. First thing she says is, "You've been practicing. You got to do it 2 or 3 times a day, Timbo." She just like, and I haven't, John. Don't tell anyone, but I never did it 3 times a day practice in my off days. But I have one keynote that I've delivered all year, and I still do my opening once a day, just in my head when I'm driving. For sort of the first 10 minutes. It's great. I mean, if you are speaking, and there'll be people listening here who die to get on the TEDx stage, practice is everything.
That's the level of commitment required.
Oh, it is. It is. And then in fact, I was listening to a podcast the other day. Dave Hughes, the comedian, was being interviewed by Osher Ginsberg. Andy G, used to be Andy G. And he was interviewing Dave. A really good interview, good in-depth interview, you know. And Dave was just talking about, he's just left TV and radio about a year ago, and he's gone on the road with his stand-up routine, and talking about how he agonises, and sort of he being all good comedians, you know, agonise over words and the way you deliver words. And, you know, they could agonise over a word for one word in one sentence for a week just to get that nuance right. And
not surprised. Chris Rock, there was a Chris Rock video on YouTube, and it literally shows maybe 40 or 50 separate gigs that he's done. And what this guy's done is spliced random parts of each of those videos into one video, and the conversation in the sentence continues the entire way through.
Oh.
And the only way you can tell that it's a different scene is he's wearing something different.
Unreal. That's clever.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. Go watch it. I can't remember what the URL is, but I'll try and dig it up.
Will please send it through, but I'll look at it. I'll put it in the show notes for this episode. But okay, so your filter's rigorous. 14 out of 300. You then put them through a speech development program, 8 to 25 hours. Is that something they need to pay for, or does that come with the becoming a TEDx speaker?
If they're on my stage, that's the expectation.
Yeah, right.
So if they're not going to do that, then they don't get on my stage.
Like Max Walker was on your stage, he wouldn't need to do it. So do you tell people, you've got to do it, you don't have to do it?
Actually,
get out! You're going to say Max did it.
Everyone commits.
Love it.
Everyone commits because they understand what we're trying to create. This is not just a speech.
Are you creating? Is this a bit cookie cutter? Are they all going to sound the same?
Well, did you think they sounded the same?
No.
No, exactly. See, part of that is understanding. One element is actually understanding your own personal style. So there's 9 elements in this grid, which I won't go into now. Mm-hmm. There's 9 elements. One of them is your personal style.
So that's so important.
And how do you make sure that is exactly? How do you make sure that that's reflected, you know, in what you're doing?
Like marketing, like 101, 102, 201, 20, like that is so important. It's like, I think I've said this in a recent episode, but I'll say it again because it's like every business wants to differentiate themselves. And I have a lot of business owners listen to this show, and they all want to differentiate themselves in a crowded marketplace. The USP's dead in terms of your product is not different to your competitor's product or service. Mm-hmm. So one way of differentiating yourself is being yourself and really honouring your personality in the brand that you're trying to build.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, if they're not honouring themselves as an individual and letting that permeate through their message, then it's got an air of incongruency.
Mm.
And
it sure has.
People will sniff it a mile away.
Yep. And it was actually interesting. Because I feel very strongly about that point. Toastmasters announced the winner of their, and I'm not a big fan of Toastmasters. Sorry, Toastmasters, but they announced their public speaking winner of the year a few months ago, and I went and had a look at his talk, and I've got to say, it felt so... I don't know whether you've seen it. It felt very manufactured.
Yeah.
You know, he was just ticking all the boxes, you know?
Yeah.
And
that's what they do. That's what a lot of these things do. They do talk about ticking boxes, and, what we're doing is crafting an experience. As a brand, we're a brand experience. As a speaker, they're a content experience. It's no different. How does that all interrelate? How do we get that to connect with the audience? How do we make that relevant and engaging? They're just 101 type things, but if you do them consistently, that's where you get to grow, as an individual and as an organization.
Correct.
We started off with 53 people on a mail list, and we've got, this year we had 2 million mentions on social media.
TEDx Melbourne?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What was the split out of interest? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, sort of that way?
Yeah, that's probably the right ratio and the right order.
2 million.
Yeah.
And do you follow that via people hashtagging?
Yeah, it's use of the hashtag.
Yeah. Wow. That's significant. So let's talk. One of the discussions that I've got going on in the Small Business Big Marketing Forum at the moment, John, is about getting bums on seats. I've got a member who's starting some events up in Brisbane, and she's going, how do I get bums on seats? Which is the ongoing question for anyone who wants to put on an event.
Sure.
And unfortunately, there's a whole lot, as you say, the marketplace is getting crowded. There's no shortage of events to go to these days. Many are free because someone's going to pitch you something at the end. Mm-hmm. And so therefore people's people's radars of like, oh, no, I'm not going to go to that because I'm going to get pitched at are quite sensitive these days. You got 900 into a room at the Melbourne Convention Centre recently.
In about 2 weeks.
In what?
Yeah, in about 2 weeks. It took us 2 weeks to get those numbers.
That's nuts. And I think I paid, what did I pay? Did I pay $100 for the ticket? $150? What was it?
145.
145.
Yeah.
So tell me, do you rely, just sit back and rely on the TED brand to get those bookings?
God, no.
Or how did, no? Okay, then how do you do it?
Well, it comes to, there's some fundamental pieces which I started to mention. So relevance and engagement. If we're not relevant and we're not engaging, the brand will never go anywhere. What people expect and what they experience will never be in sync. Mm-hmm. So we're acutely aware that every single touch point that we have with someone, we're constantly adding value. We're constantly having an engaging question with them, if you like, or something that's going to get them to think about the world they live in. Mm-hmm. And in Melbourne in particular, there's a bit of a rash. We just saying before the interview, there's been a rash of events in the innovation space, and we've constantly had to be in front of that, thought leading in that regard. So one of the ways you can do that is making sure you understand your community really well. So you might remember the application form for coming to our event is not just what's your name and your contact details. Mm-hmm. You might remember it had things like, what are you proud of? What are 3 websites that represent you as a human being? We're able to get some deep insights into what I call the psychographic of our community. What excites them, what their hopes and dreams and aspirations were. We also ask, the causes they support, their hobbies and interests, so that we get a contextual understanding of who's in our room. And by doing that, we can understand things like, well, if we were to do this particular theme or this particular topic or have this particular speaker, would they find that relevant? Mm-hmm. And then I work with the speakers to work out, well, how do we make this engaging for them? And if you're constantly mapping these together in as granular way as possible, then you're not, rather than speaking at them, you're having conversations with them. Mm. And that's a key differentiator. We could have done a bit better job of doing that this year. I think we did a really good job last year. But in terms of, we're not just saying this is the event, this is the qualifications of our speakers, this is the topic they're going to speak about. We're saying, why do you want to even be with us? How can we serve you achieve things both within our event that you might find interesting, but how do we also engage with topics outside of our event that are relevant to you? And how do we help you connect with those people? How do we help you solve your life's problems, if we can call them that, in a way that moves beyond just come to a conference?
So you do a whole what's amazing about that, John, is that it's all voluntary, and I just wonder and I guess this is across all of TED, and clearly TED's not being held back, but I'm going to say it anyway. Mm. Is TEDx being held back by the fact that you've got all this amazing data now, you've got the opportunity to engage via social media at probably a pretty amazing level by being able to speak with versus at your tribe, yet you're all volunteers and you're all running your own businesses outside of your TEDx stuff. So I'm guessing you could be doing a whole lot more. Scary, really, given you're getting 900 bums on seats in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Look, I reckon I guesstimate we're working within maybe 40 to 60% of what we could potentially do with a full-time organisation.
And the marketplace is becoming more competitive. So is it now time has the world caught up with TED, and is it time for TED to make the next bold move?
Look, I think we're already doing that. I mentioned the Adventures. It's a classic example.
The Adventures?
Yeah. So
is this your 2015 plan?
Plans, yeah.
Because you've just, in the context of that, listeners, by the way, I'm speaking to John Yo, who is the curator of TEDx Melbourne and has been since 2009. John, you've literally just got back this week from an event in Christchurch.
Yeah, the National Organisers Conference, which is pretty much everyone in Australia and New Zealand sharing best practice and ideas.
Okay, so 2015. What's the step up?
Well, we noticed that we had a whole bunch of scenarios, and I'll give you one that's kind of a favourite at the moment. We're working with a car manufacturer. They have a situation that obviously, in Australia in particular, all the manufacturing for cars is leaving. They expect a talent pool shrinkage within 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. And they have this lab. And what's unique about this lab is it's one of the few labs on the planet that can design a car and build a car. And I said, oh, cool, can we get in that lab? And he said, no. He said, why not? He said, people in our company can't get in that lab. I said, all right, so you've got this scenario where 5 to 7 years. He said, yeah. He goes, well, we work with an amazing bunch called RoboGals. They encourage girls in years 7 and 8 to do science, engineering, technology.
RoboGirls.
RoboGals, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, what if I work with Fairfax, our local newspaper, and do a story about your commitment to not only science, engineering, and technology, but girls in particular. And they liked the idea. So, long story short, we have access to that lab. And you can only get access to that lab if you're part of the TEDx Melbourne community. Huh. So the partner benefits, the community benefit, and we benefit because we can create unique experiences that you can't get outside of our space.
And that lab, is that a physical lab? Like with people in white coats running around?
It's in Melbourne, yeah.
So, that's cool. So TEDx Melbourne, as a TEDx what? What am I? Am I a TEDx attendee? Am I a member?
Yeah, you would qualify in there, and then we could work out a way to get a select number of people in that lab because the lab's actually physically not that big.
Mate, let's do a show from that lab. What would the show be about for small business, big marketing? It's a car manufacturer.
It is a car manufacturer. We'll have to talk. Well, let's talk. I don't know. I really don't know.
We'll play bullshit bingo, and I'll say we'll take that offline, John.
Okay. Let's do that.
Hey, mate. I in my experience speaking to people who get involved with creating amazing content, and I quote Melissa Maker, a house cleaner from Toronto. She has a business called Clean My Space. She's embarked on an amazing video marketing strategy. She now sits on a board at YouTube in New York. Amazing things have happened to me having started this podcast 5 years ago. I'm interested to know what amazing things have happened to you, or the most amazing thing that's happened to you since becoming involved with the TED organisation.
Oh, I have to pick one?
Well, top of mind, and then as you share that one, another one will come to mind and you can share that as well.
Okay. I'll give you my very first experience when I first went to a TED conference in the US. They, at the time, this is, 3-4 years ago now, they fly in international award-winning baristas and their machines and their beans to caffeinate the attendees. That's cool in itself.
That's cool.
But, of course, invariably there's the long line to try all the different coffee vendors. And the person that I was standing behind was, and we struck up a conversation, was the strategy director for Amazon. And the guy behind me was Morgan Spurlock from Supersize Me. So you can imagine the conversation we're having. And that's sort of the power of that type of networking. You can't put a value on.
No.
And that's not even on stage. These are people who are just hanging around in the foyer.
Mate, they just want a coffee.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And, if we can create that serendipitous type of opportunity for people who come into our space, I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah, well, and to that point, and I've spoken about this before to my listeners, we've got to get out of our comfort zones. I had stuff on the day TEDx was on, but it was stuff. And there's some things in our business life, in our personal life, we can't move. But there are other things where we've really got to ask ourselves the question, where should I be that I'm going to get the most value today? Or some question like that, you know. And for me, cancelling what I had on, buying that TEDx ticket and seeing some of those speakers was wonderful. I happened to catch up with a couple of people that I hadn't seen for a long time as well. Serendipitous, maybe. But it was just such a good thing to do. And the more we can... And it's like... And I'm sitting there listening to a lady who's going to be going to Mars, a guy who can figure out if people are lying, a school teacher who hands permission for the school, a school principal whose school is run by students. And it's like, well, how's this benefiting my marketing? But whether it does or not, it opens up your mind.
It does, absolutely. First of all, thank you. Thank you for taking, that special consideration and to come to our event. I do appreciate it.
I'll do it again.
Brilliant. Awesome. I should run these more often. But you talk exactly to our point. There's the mind-expanding experience and the perspectives you get that cause you to think about your world in a different way and then therefore go out and be a different person is what we're after. Because if you go to a conference and go, yeah, that was a good idea, and go home again, everyone goes to those conferences. We don't want that.
Well, and John, I've spoken in 8 countries this year at about 60 conferences, and I've been to a lot of conferences, mate, and I'm sure you have too, and I'm sure many listeners have, and they can become a little bit the same, and they don't challenge, and they do just tick boxes. So many learnings. When you look at something, I look at TED, I've always looked at TED in 2 ways. One is as a place to go and learn and be entertained and see interesting things, but I look at it through the eyes of a marketer and a speaker, and there's so many learnings as well. So, hey, John, well done to you, mate, for being involved, for bringing it to Melbourne, for furthering it, because I think, 40 to 60% you think is, you've optimised it so far. I can't wait to see what it looks like in 5 years' time.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to it myself.
Good on you. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Tim.
Well, team, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. How clever is John? How good is TED? If you haven't been to TED, get over there and have a look, and TEDx as well, of course. I've got a top 5 this time, thanks to Net Registry and 99designs.com/SBBM. My top 5, I couldn't keep it to 3. There was too much marketing gold dripping from the ceiling. Number 1, be relevant and engaging. So important, Be relevant and engaging with your audience, your prospects, so that they think, yeah, that business gets me. They understand me. To that point, number 2, understand your prospects really well. I love how John said get a contextual understanding of them, where they are at now, where they're looking at to be in the future. Get inside their head and don't just understand them demographically. I've got a whole section inside my forum where we go through the brand character, and one of the questions helps you get inside the head of your prospects. But that's a great tip. Tip number 3 that I took from John's chat, don't speak at them, speak with them. Yeah, how many brands speak at us? At. Buy now, buy this, do this, closing now. Nah, forget that. Speak with me. And that's why social media is so good. That's why podcasting, blogging, video marketing is so good. It gives us the tools and the mediums to have a two-way conversation. That's why I love seeing the comments in the show notes of each episode. That's why I love having a forum. There's nothing more powerful than being able to have a two-way conversation with your prospects about them, about where they're at, and how, in my case, how I can help you move forward with your marketing. So that's a great tip from John as well. Tip number 4, just go to a TEDx event, or if you're lucky enough, go to a TED event. But get out there and don't look at a TEDx event, for example, and go, oh, why would I want to hear from an astronaut? It's got nothing to do with my business. Just hearing from other people share their ideas and stories opens your mind, okay? So get out there, Google when the next TEDx event is in your area, and they are everywhere, and book a ticket. And number 5, do a public speaking course. I can't encourage that enough. Speaking has grown my business exponentially these last 18 months. Even if you don't think you'll ever speak from stage, do a public speaking course, because it's great for your confidence, it's great for articulating your message, and it's great for being able to get rid of all the unnecessary verbiage around your sales messages and enforces you to cut to the chase. Okay, so encourage you to then look out for public speaking courses. I might even think about putting one on next year. If you're interested in that or anything else you'd kind of like to learn more of, I do want to do some things next year, some live events, just an idea bubbling away in my little mind. So email me, tim@smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Hey, now I will put in the show notes for this episode 213, that Chris Rock YouTube video that John spoke about, and the Derek Lithers TEDx talk that was John's favourite. And I'll put a link to my favourite, which is the shark-proof wetsuit. Okay, so there you go. Let's get stuck in to the motivational quote of the week. I love this one. I think it's my favourite motivational marketing quote of the week so far. It is by none less Sir Richard Branson. And he says, a business is just an idea to make other people's lives better. How good is that? If you think of your business like that, then it's going to make the marketing of your business a whole lot easier. You will focus on creating helpful marketing, a topic I can talk endlessly about. A business is just an idea to make other people's lives better. Write it down, put it in front of your computer, write it on your hand, write it under your eyelids, and practice it. Live it. It will help grow your business. That just about brings us to the end of episode 213. Thank you very much to Net Registry for making this show possible, and to the guys at 99 Designs. Don't forget, Turbo Power Pack Upgrade, 99designs.com/SBBM. Claim it now. Hey, how's this for upcoming guests? I'm about to do an interview in about half an hour's time, actually, with Daniel Delaney, who has got a very, very cool barbecue restaurant in New York City. I am speaking with personal trainer to the stars, Michelle Bridges. I have got the CEO of 99 Designs coming on to talk about the power of crowdsourcing your designs and how that business actually came to be in the first place. It's such a big success story. I have got the head honcho of the National Online Retailers Association, Paul Greenberg, coming up, and so much more. You want to join other motivated small business owners and talk marketing every day or every week, whenever you feel like it, basically? Head over to crankmymarketing.com and join the forum. It'll take you 2 minutes and you will think, where have I been? Where has this been all your life? Enough from me. This has been Timbo Reid. Well, I am Timbo Reid. This has been the Small Business Big Marketing Show. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.